Good afternoon, everyone. I think people are still coming in, but it's 2 o'clock, so we'll start. Thank you for joining us for this webinar. I greet you all and welcome you to this webinar this afternoon. I extend a special welcome to our facilitator, Professor Sihau Ngubane, our panelists, Mr. P. Pacific Gabalira Uwase, and Mr. Seji Matanda, who are with us this afternoon. As the University of KwaZulu-Natal, we are honored to be hosting this webinar to discuss issues relating to refugees under the topic, whoever, wherever, whenever everyone has the right to seek safety. This webinar is being held today after the entire world celebrated World Refugee Day, which was yesterday, as directed by the United Nations in 2000. World Refugee Day highlights the plight of refugees as they seek safety. It also highlights the challenges that many refugees face in various host countries and communities to which they flee in search of safety. It is important to have this discussion at this time. Human Rights Watch recently noted an increase in cases where some governments are using various means to push back and divert and expel refugees from their countries. The organization also noted that in some cases, these means are violent and results in violation of rights of refugees. Currently, there is also a raging debate over the decision by the UK to relocate thousands of African refugees to Rwanda. Here at home, we continue to see anger and xenophobic violence being directed at immigrants, including refugees, by some pressure groups and organizations. All of this highlights the main challenge that some host countries and communities still view refugees as a problem, even though many refugees have contributed positively to the well-being at their host countries and communities. One of our panelists here today, a UKZN alumnus, is living proof of this. And so in celebrating the World Refugee Month, we should also honor many refugees for their contributions to the world and our communities. We hope this webinar will explore these issues, and with those few words, I wish you a wonderful engagement. I will now hand over to our facilitator, Professor Ngubane, to set the scene for the discussion this afternoon, and he will also introduce our panelists. Thank you so much, Mbovu. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Sis Noma Zondo, the Executive Director, Corporate Relations Division, University of KwaZulu-Natal. And greetings to everyone. And once again, thank you for joining us for this important webinar, as Sis Noma has highlighted the importance of the day. June 20th, 2022 marks the 71st Annual World Refugee Day. Its purpose is to create awareness, celebrate, and honor the courage, the strength, and the determination of our African brothers, sisters, and children. They are forced to flee their homes under life-threatening circumstances and persecution. And in 2021, the theme of the World Refugee Day was Together We Heal, Learn, and Shine. And this year's theme talks about the rights of refugees across the world to be treated with respect and dignity. And the theme for this year stipulates that everyone has a right to seek safety. Today is a special day when the world takes time to recognize the resilience of forcibly displaced people worldwide. According to the UN Refugee Agency, in 2021, 26.6 million people fled to different countries as refugees. Some were under 18, so they were children under the age of 18. We have also witnessed from social media visual of women carrying their children crossing borders in hazardous environments. And also on top of that, COVID-19 pandemic has considerably contributed to high numbers of people seeking refugee status in South Africa. During the pandemic, inspiring stories of the plight of some of the refugees mounted from the place of hopelessness profoundly impacted our South African government and other countries. In this context, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, we have the discussions today where we'll learn from their experiences. Some are very emotional, and also we will applaud their resilience to survive under these difficult circumstances. Without much further ado, I would like to introduce our first speaker, who is Mr. P. Pacific Kabalira Uwase. Uwase is originally from Rwanda, where he witnessed as the worst of atrocities. He embarked on an uncertain and treacherous journey at the age of 20 that ended with him settling in South Africa in 2001. He began life as a car guard in the streets and malls of Durban, from where he fought his way to be enrolled at the then University of Natal. His struggle and tendency for academic inclusion led the university to adopt a radical policy that helped open the gates to many refugees. And upon completing his degree in physics at UKZN, he was awarded the Mandela Rhodes Scholarship and later began his professional career in banking. He previously served as the head of the FPD Business School and is currently a consulting partner at USA-based Whitin and Roy Partnership. Besides his management consulting activities in over 25 countries in Africa and Southeast Asia, his diverse entrepreneurial ventures include hospitality, app development, and investment into small and medium enterprises. P. Pacific is also a member of the Council of the Jesuit Refugee Service, Southern Africa. P. Pacific Kabalira Uwase is the founder and the director of PEM Consulting and Management Consulting Company, helping business to grow by empowering their people to maximize their human potential. And he also authors a book, Witnessing from the Rwandan Tragedy to Healing in South Africa. Today he's going to share with us his rewarding journey, which ended up seeing and witnessing him reaching for his dreams. And we are all looking forward to his inspiring discussion today. Over to you, Mr. P. Pacific Kabalira Uwase.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Professor Ngubane and Ms. Zondo for opening this discussion and for being willing to host such an important conversation. Now, of course, myself, having been here for about 21 years, I have witnessed and lived through the experiences of a refugee. Now, today is a very important day indeed, World Refugee Day, and it is my honor and my pleasure to be speaking here virtually, yes, but at UKZN, a university that has made a profound difference in my life. I will speak more about that, but I would like you to know that even though I am speaking as a refugee, and I'm going to share some of how that happened, but I am speaking today from a place of privilege. I have papers. I have a degree, thanks to UKZN. I have a job, and actually today I'm in a position where I create jobs, and I'm a published author with using the facilities that I found in this beautiful country. Your biggest retail store has branded my book a recommended read, and homebrew. Now, what homebrew is books written locally, and actually we were not sure if they were going to include my book or not, and they decided to include it in the homebrew collection, and I'm talking about exclusive books, particularly because of the South African story in the book, much of which, by the way, happens at UKZN. So this is not going to be a long discussion and complaining about problems of refugees, etc. We are talking specifically about the illusions and realities of safety. And I'm going to tell you some of my own experiences. I can assure you, just to quote Langston Hughes, some of you might know the great poet. Well, I'll tell you, life for me ain't been no crystal stair. It had stacks in it and splinters. And he continues to talk about how. So I would like to start by saying that safety, when we look at it as refugees, there are many, many, many aspects, and perhaps from an individual point of view, many communities that are concerned. Now, the first, I have to say, realization that there is no safety around me didn't come from anyone else, but my own people. That is when I left Rwanda and ended up in Tanzania. Now, my uncle sent me a little bit of money so he can help me to go to the West. Now, the very family that received me put together a scam, and they stole the money, or at least most of it. Now, of course, when I received the money, I was very happy. My intention was to go on and go to the West because as a 20-year-old I thought that is the best thing for me. Of course, there are many people who would believe that. As you know, many people actually lose their lives trying to go to the West. And this is how we were talking about people who are going to be, well, forced is the word, to actually be put on planes so they can be sent to Rwanda. They would have spent a lot, and many of theirs would have lost their lives trying to go to the West. Well, I was trying, and my very community took the money from me. Now, of course, that's a mean that they find to survive, but it just meant literally that a hole was dug right under my feet. Now, I had to continue. I wasn't going to go back to Rwanda, and my imagination was that I cannot survive in a non-Francophone country. I had to find a Francophone country to go to, and so that I can go on. I was guided by the belief that education was the way out for me. So I decided to go to Madagascar. So I went to Mozambique looking for a way to go to Madagascar. It was unfortunate that I didn't find a way to go to Madagascar, but it was also fortunate that I didn't find a way to go to Madagascar. I was in Maputo at some point and went to an internet cafe to tell a friend by email that I am looking for a way to tell my family that I am in Maputo. By that time, my family had been lied to. They were told I was already in Canada. So I broke the news to them that I am in Maputo. Fortunately, the screen next to me in that internet cafe had some French on it, and I saw it. And so I engaged a conversation with this man who happened to be the right person to talk to. He'd been in the region for 6 years. He knew South Africa, Swaziland, Mozambique very well. And he said, go to Swaziland, which I tried and didn't work. And then finally, in spite of actually of what I had told him, he suggested that I go to South Africa. Now, South Africa was the last country I had been thinking of. I did not want to come to South Africa at the time, simply because, of course, if you can picture at 20, sometimes I look at 20-year-olds and I wonder if I was that, young when all this was happening. But a 20-year-old hearing that, oh, in South Africa, Black people, and by the way, I have to say this, they would say Zulus, because there is a perception in many places in the world that Black people in South Africa are Zulus. Now, Zulu is probably the second most famous word from South Africa after Mandela. And my ignorance, and I have to say, I travel quite a lot, I find this in many places, equating Black people to Zulus. And of course, there is also this, it was said that they don't like Black people from other African countries. Now, without any way of verifying or any proof of anything that would be contrary to that, I believed it. And so that was a reason. But I also came at a time when there was a scandal in the media here in South Africa that actually made headlines around the world of policemen, white policemen who were unleashing their dogs onto illegal immigrants. They were training dogs with real people, and there were illegal immigrants in the veld, and they were caught on camera doing that. And it was a case that made the headlines. And I was coming down at the same time. And so not only there was this anti-Black African sentiment, there was also this racism that I feared. And then on top of that, I had the fact that I could not speak English. I could only speak French because I was educated in French. So South Africa for me was not an option. As this man insisted, he taught me, well, he actually told me exactly how to do it, how to come to South Africa. And his promise to me, there will be Rwandan people in Durban if you reach Durban. And he gave me a phone number of his countryman. Now, this man was a Congolese man who would then be in Durban to receive me. But he told me, your first prize is, as soon as you cross the border with South Africa, get yourself arrested by the police. What he meant was, they might not treat you well, but they will eventually take you to Home Affairs because you have a legitimate reason to apply for asylum. And so that's how I came to South Africa. Exactly how he told me, that's how it happened. And I came to discover along the way, always, all the way to Durban, I called the number and the gentleman came. I was dissuaded from handing myself over to the police, but I actually went to Home Affairs and applied for asylum. Now, this is where the first realization that there is no safety actually came to me. I was thinking, when you apply, they give you, there's a process, and during that process, you are assisted. I was 20, so I didn't have means of income, and I didn't have that much money that I brought with me. And I was thinking there's some kind of assistance. And then I will tell them I want to go to university because I had been to university in Rwanda for a few months, and there will be some kind of refugee scholarship, and there will be a way. This is, and it didn't happen like that. From the first moment, no, there was no paper. First, it was a handwritten piece of paper that said, I will go back to Home Affairs to have my first interview. Then it took months. Then I got a permit. Thankfully, it was after the Section 21 permit explicitly saying no work and no study allowed had been abolished. So with that, you could at least do something, but there was nothing to do other than become a car guard. Now, that was a blessing and a curse. I had to, car guard is a territorial activity, as you can imagine. You have to be there. And if you are there, you are not doing anything else. And so I decided from early on that I was going to be the roaming car guard, the car guard who looks after other people's places when they have an errand to run. And that is what I did. And that took me to different places. The beach, Victoria Embankment, different malls, and the university. I used to watch cars outside the gates of the university. The main road that goes on to the main gate of the university, just outside what used to be a few meters away from what used to be the student counseling center. I don't know if it is still. And then down on Queen Elizabeth, there was this street, Queen Elizabeth, where students, and the parking was overflowing, they would leave their cars and I would look after them. And the gift that I appreciated the most, even more than the change they gave me, was the gift of conversation. And some students actually spoke to me. They told me what happens on the other side of those turnstile gates. And so my dream became, how do I actually get on the other side and stay? And so dreaming. And I can tell you, the university is so important, even by virtue of just being there. It makes a huge difference. One of the things that happened is I used to work at the beach, and the old Smith Street, if you stand at the beach where it ends, and if you look right through the street, it's now, I think, Anton Lembede Street, you will see a tower. And that tower is the Howard College Tower. When I was a car guard, I used to stare at that tower and say, I'm here today, but tomorrow I want to be there. And that's every morning when I went to work at the beach. Now, of course, by being there, you already provide a dream. And me hearing those turnstiles cranking and cracking and students swiped their cards, well, I wanted to knock those down, or rather turn those turnstile gates open myself. And that was my dream. And so there are some people at UKZN who dealt with me as I applied. I got my refugee status. And then I applied. I got a place to study, thanks to the Faculty of Science, and a financial aid package, which the Student Funding Center said was not correct. It was a mistake. Now, this was a long battle when I was dealing with the Student Funding Center. It's not that people were being malicious. They just didn't know what to do with me. I remember being sent from the Shepstone building to all the way to finance, which was near the gate. And because they didn't know what to do. And when I got there, the person from the finance department wrote a handwritten note to the Faculty of Science, which is on the other side. Those of you who know the old science building, I think it's can't remember what it is called, George Campbell building. I can't remember what the name of the actual building is called. It used to be the science building. Now I had to walk from Shepstone back to the gate, back to the science building, holding this note. And that note said, in 16 years I've worked here, we have never given a bursary or financial aid to a non-South African student. Please consider any departmental bursaries available. So I knew that I was holding a note that is crushing my dream. And it was a long walk. And the faculty actually apologized to me for misleading me. Now, I went home. Of course, I had to survive. I had somebody just wrote, we called it the science block. Yes, it was the science block. And so I went back to being a car guard because I needed to pay rent. And the following day I came back and I joined the queues of the Student Funding Center again. And so the staff eventually got annoyed with me and they made me jump the queue so I can get the word with the head of the Student Funding Center so he can set the record straight. And he did. He told me, of course, that there's no way. One of the things that he said was, if you were applying for second year and you had done well in first year and you're applying for a bursary, we would give it to you. The problem is you are applying for first year and we have no way of assisting you. And so NSFAS had refused to include refugees. And so there was no way. So I went back home again. The dream crashed. The following day, I came back and I knew that from the Director of Student Funding, you talk to the Dean of Student Services. And I was determined to go all the way to whoever is on the top of the tower so that at least I can be heard. And then Dean of Student Services, Trevor Wills, actually, he knew my name by the time I got there. And he said, actually, you have a point. You are not a South African student, and you are not an international student with a scholarship and a visa. You are somewhere in between. You are a refugee, and our policy says nothing about you. So this is a conversation for the council. And come back in a week's time. And that was the beginning. Our lectures had started, so I just had to go to the faculty and tell them that Trevor Wills is dealing with it, but I need to have access to the LAN on the 4th floor of the science block. And they gave me a temporary student card. Now that card opened the LAN, but it also opened the gate. And I remember running so I can swipe that card, like those students that I had seen swiping the card and making that gate turn and turn again. And so I was in, even though it was temporary, but I knew that I was getting closer. Now, my story has many villains, and I'm going to not mention them. I don't think this is the time, but it also has many heroes. And I want to say Trevor Wills is one of them, because I don't know what meetings he had to have, because eventually when I went, he said, you can now go to the Student Funding Center and apply. Only 2 years later, I found that there was a policy document that allowed refugees to apply for funding. Now, it's student loans. They were not part of NSFAS because NSFAS had still refused, and boom, I was in. But I have learned that that fund has been discontinued. So I don't know how things happen now. Other heroes include Professor Merovitz, some of you might know as the registrar, and also in the Faculty of Science, Professor of Computer Science, who believed in me throughout my entire career. Student Counseling Center, the Student Counseling Center, critical. if I am able to speak today, if I'm able to write books, if I am able to do what I do, it is thanks to the Student Counseling Center, because eventually I actually got dubbed this child of the Student Counseling Center at UKZN. Particularly, I would mention Libby Collins. And then there was Mario Dendal, who was running the student leadership course. She ran a student leadership development program in Pietermaritzburg, and she played a critical role in my leadership at the time. I ended up in student politics. I was the president of the Science Students' Council, and I created the Physics Society, and it is this. Oh, I got to work with amazing leaders like the late Honorable Deputy Minister Baveli Hlongwa. Some of you will know. Actually, while I was in student politics, we were in the same generation. We were growing up together within the politics of the student leadership at the time at UKZN. And I can tell you this, when I got my job in the bank, one of the things they told me is that academics are important, but actually they were a lot more interested in my leadership profile, thanks to the University of KwaZulu-Natal that gave me so many opportunities. And so I had very high highs at the university, and some of the lows were very low. At some point, I was admitted at King George V in the hospital for depression and anxiety. And again, thanks to the quick thinking and quick interventions of the Student Counseling Center, that's how I ended up there. They took care of me there. It is such an interesting memory for me to have one day when the Student Counseling Center decided to take me to a private hospital to do that. So somebody just reminding me some of the memories. I'm seeing the messages coming. Baveli Hlongwa did chemical engineering at the time. So some of the lectures that we shared were maths and chemistry. And then she was, of course, involved, as you know, some of you would know her in student politics. So I got the brightest young minds. I got to be a delegate. It was the Dean of Student Services who dressed me so I can look presentable at the Brightest Young Minds Summit. And then I was awarded the Diamond Prize for Leadership, and eventually the Mandela Rhodes Scholarship while I was at the university. So very high highs. And we're talking about the safety now. In all the things that I've mentioned, what affects the safety and actually what makes the safety of refugees an illusion sometimes is not that people want to be malicious or bad. It's just because sometimes they don't know what to do. But also you have people who go completely beyond their call of duty and do something amazing, and they change lives in that way, like the people that I mentioned. When I left the university, I was actually safe because I left to go to a job in a bank. I was leaving behind, yes, a life of struggle, but actually a life that had also resourced me in so many ways. I got to work in the bank, and then I got to leave the bank so that I can live my work life on my terms and create my own company eventually. Traveled so many places without a passport. Don't tell anybody, without a passport. And I remember once applying for a visa. We talk about rights of refugees, of course. I was rejected 3 times, and on the 4th time, they gave me 2 months with 2 entries, and I took it. Then they told me, when you come back, tell us that you are back in the country. This is the USA. And I know explicitly that some countries like France and Spain particularly list the document that I have as non-admissible in that country. And so I do go there sometimes because there are ways, but a lot of people don't have an opportunity to do that. And so I know people whose dreams have been crushed. A very close family member whose dream was crushed when his paper was refused, when he had been accepted in Dubai for a job, and he was rejected because of that travel document that he has, just because it says refugee. He was sent back, and it's a very difficult life event to recover from. And so I want to say, a mixture of experiences that I've had, but I want to end with this. I am very privileged because even some of the struggles that I've had, I'm now seeing them as struggles of privilege. Remember, I'm at the Student Funding Center because there is a university in Durban. I'm at the Student Funding Center knocking because the faculty gave me a place to study. I am at the Faculty of Science. They are knocking because there is a possibility and because there is a tower, that guiding tower that was there. I consider that privilege because there are many refugees around the world who will never have that chance. I'm on the board of the JRS, Jesuit Refugee Services. One of the operations that we talk about a lot in our work is the Malawian Camp, Dzaleka. They go preschool, primary school, high school. They finish high school, and then they go do some kind of post-high school education within the camp, but they are not allowed to leave the camp so they can do something with their lives. They are not allowed. And this is actually so many people that are in conditions like that. I remember knocking at the door of the bank, the bank that I was working for in Durban, so I can open a bank account to be paid my salary. And they refused to open a bank account because I'm a refugee. And eventually I told the clerk, you will open this bank account by the time I leave. Unfortunately, I don't know how you're going to do it because you're saying that the system will not accept it. So I had told her, I'm your colleague, I'm an employee of the bank. And she had to go and call the manager, and the manager then sorted it out. And somehow I got a bank account by the time I left. But imagine that this is huge privilege. I am fighting with the bank for a bank account, but it's because I have a job. So it's this is why what I meant by I'm speaking from a position of privilege. There are many refugees in Durban who are still outside of those gates. There are many refugees in Durban who have finished. They got in those gates, but they can't do much with the degrees that they have just because they are refugees. And I have to say, this is a two-way street because I also know refugees who are greatly contributing to UKZN as a tertiary institution. So illusion or reality? Well, this is something that I would like to sometimes leave people to imagine and conclude for themselves. But the point is, the life of refugees is sometimes so suddenly precarious, like, you know, these xenophobic attacks that happen here. Now, there is a discord on what to call them. Is it xenophobic attacks or what you call them, criminals or whatever they are? The point is, it is the image of South Africa across the continent doesn't actually, it doesn't matter what you call them, the result is the same. I remember going to Cote d'Ivoire and an immigration officer saw my travel document. Remember, it's a refugee travel document, but it says South Africa. And she says, you Black South Africans should stay in your country and never leave. And I said, excuse me, madam, what did you just say? She said it in French. And in that moment, I thought, this is the time to tell her I'm not South African. And I chose not to do that because I thought, let me actually hear what she wants to say. And she explained to me what she means. She said, I remember as a young girl running in the streets of Abidjan, saying, Libérez Mandela, Libérez Mandela. That means free Mandela, as a schoolgirl. And then she grew up. She's now with the corrected immigration officer. And she was saying, and now brothers and sisters are in your country and they are just looking for bread and you're killing them. Now,
can we wrap up, P?
This is I'm getting to the end. And this is the question I want to ask is, who is looking after the image of South Africa on the continent? It is us, particularly this amazing tertiary institution, that actually can play a big role. You already have played a huge role. You already do by just being there, as I said, but is there more that can be done? And that's how I want to invite you to look at it and say, what is your part in making the refugee safety a reality when they come to you? What part do you play?
Are you done, ma'am?
Yes.
Thank you very much, P, for sharing your experiences with us, some sad moments that you experienced, and also some positive stories that you still cherish about the University of KwaZulu-Natal. Colleagues, if you have questions, you'll just write them when we come to question and answer session. But thank you very much for presenting your story. I will now invite the next speaker, from a student perspective as a refugee and the challenges living as a refugee. Let us welcome Mr. Serge Matanda, who's an honors student in theology at UKZN and hailing from the Democratic Republic of Congo. Mr. Matanda is from DRC. He comes from a family of 8 children, and he is the 4th child. Serge immigrated to South Africa 8 years ago due to the political war in his country. His passion is teaching and intends to develop the spirit of working in a community to respond and empower people in leadership issues in Africa. Serge has the desire to serve others. As Dr. Miles Munro said, great leaders do not desire to lead, but to serve. I like that one. He is currently studying towards his honors in theology at UKZN, and he likes to read biographies of great leaders in the world. For example, Dr. Miles Munro, Dr. Nelson Mandela, Martin Luther King Jr., and other inspiring leaders. He also loves sports and watching soccer. Welcome, Matanda, and I would like to invite you to take the floor and share your story. You look like you are about to cry.
So,
Are you ready? Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Over to you. Good luck.
Okay. Thank you so much, Prof. No, I'm not about to cry. I've been crying and until my tears it's become like for a fish. So even when I'm crying, you can't see it. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much to Mr. P. Because I can see touch a lot of what I'm supposed to say, but we'll carry on and say something on the issue according to the topic that it has been given to me. To me, I will try to speak about almost 4 or 5 points, and among them, I will try to explain the refugee according to my definition or according to my understanding, and not according maybe to Prof. Ngubane or to someone else, but according to myself. And I will speak also about South Africa among the countries that are hosting refugees. And another point that is very important, I will speak about the challenges that I'm facing in South Africa as a refugee or the students. Yeah, that will be very helpful. And I'll speak in general. After that, I will speak also about the last point. It'll be the demand to the leadership of UKZN. So to myself, when talking about the refugee, I can say a refugee is just someone who ran from his country to another country for many reasons. It can be a political reason, it can be because the war happened, like for some of us. And you're running to another country. And when running to another country, it doesn't mean like yes, we're just going. Maybe when we're going there, what we're expecting just safety, as P said, and peace, stability, and healing from your past experience, and reintegration. So if you can live a normal life as everyone. As Prof said, I'm from DRC, Congo. And for those who are always watching the news or always reading, you will understand that DRC in Africa is among the country that is not stable. So the war happened, that's why some of us will run away from the country. And it was in 2014, as Prof said, when I came in South Africa, because the war happened in the country. Also, when the war happened, you see there's many groups that are fighting there. There's many rebels, then militia. See, there's a lot of things happen, and some of us refuse to agree or to join one of the group just to be a soldier, as some military or soldiers came and pressurized us as young people to join the group. And as consequences of that one, you can see my finger this side here. So because we refuse and something happened. So I don't want to explain many on that one, but if we have some questions, maybe after this meeting, I will try to explain to you and to give more details, because I don't have much time according to the time that has been given to me. And the point that I can speak also about South Africa is among the countries that are hosting refugees. You know, to be honest, South Africa is among the best. Is among the best in Africa once they receive the refugees. Why I'm saying like that? You will see like there's no camp policy. So it doesn't mean that once you are a refugee, you need to go in the camp like in other countries, but it can be free. Once they receive you, you are free and go to the rights and left to try to live like everyone. If you have that ability to do business, you can do. And that happened, I think it's more than 15 years. Now South Africa always doing like that and receive people that are coming from war and other issues related to politics and other stuff. And it's something that we need really to appreciate as the refugee in South Africa. And myself, I'm grateful to that. Another point that the challenges that we are facing, it's when you're coming inside of in the country here in South Africa, as P said, I went also to Home Affairs through the friends that we came together from Congo, Rwanda, Tanzania, and until we found ourselves in South Africa. So we didn't know where to go, like in South Africa, where exactly. And we found ourselves in Johannesburg. And in Johannesburg, to me, the speed of life is not like where we are coming from. So it wasn't easy to live in Johannesburg. And after a few months, is that one of my friends, he has the contacts of someone in Durban. Then we came to that place. When we came to that place, okay, they're supposed to welcome us as newcomers. So we are there and they welcome us. And we think that, okay, so we're gonna live like everyone. Yeah, we live like everyone, like in our countries, like you can see them in the morning. They say, okay, we're going to work. Okay, maybe also we'll get a job one day. Until 2 days after, when they came back from work, then we supposed to do a meeting. And that meeting, we didn't know that they are paying the rents according to the number of people in the house. So they start telling us that they told us that we are not like in our country where we can welcome someone who can live in your house even for 2 years without paying any rent, anything. So that is not the case in South Africa. So you need to contribute also for the food. You need to contribute also for the rent. And so that time, nothing in the pocket. So how to do that? Then we supposed to go first, to start from Home Affairs, and after that we'll see what will happen. Then someone bring us by Home Affairs and then try to just to tell us this is Home Affairs, we need to go there, and then they will ask you questions, we will explain according to your story. So when we reach there, we explain to them, First of all, they gave us the paper that will come back after 2 weeks. Then after 2 weeks, we went there. We didn't know, you need to have a translator that will explain to you as a French speaker. We don't know anything, any word in English. Yeah. So they explained to us, and then the paper is like this and like that. You need to fill here, you need to put your name here, you need to do this, you need to explain a lot of stories until we get the refugee status. But some of us, we have that chance. It's not like the time for P where they say you can't work and you can't go to school. But some of us on the refugee status, you will see that is written that rights as provided for in the chapter 2 of the Constitution, including work and studies in South Africa. So the paper that they're giving, one of the challenges that we are facing that I will like to underline is once they give you this paper, according to the law, according to the Constitution, it allows you to work and to study. But it seems like the information on that paper is not welcome on the same way as is written, as P try to as P said. So you will see like it's not welcome everywhere. first of all, it's not all the bank that will allow you to open the bank account. It's not all the place they will take you for the job. So it was a disaster until I found myself a small job somewhere in Durban, Red Hill side. I start working there. And on that time, they're supposed to give me only 400 a week. Imagine paying the rent, electricity, water, and that one, and it wasn't easy. So that is one of the big challenges. It seems like the paper that's from Home Affairs, the information on that paper is not welcome the same way. Until now, sometimes you can apply other places, or I can just tell you South African only, see, but as a refugee, try to check yourself who will speak for me, who will try to help me, but you can't get much as you want. And another challenge that I've noticed as a refugee, there is no that financial support once they welcome you in the country. So there's no, because once someone is running from his country, he doesn't come with money or with anything, you're just running as you are. So there's no any financial support that will help someone to organize his life and living like everyone. That's one of the big challenges that as a refugee we are facing. And another one, just a small one, according to me, we are living with the fear, with the spirit of fear, because every place that the government is not able to provide service delivery, it will start with strike, and then after that will finish like people coming from out of South Africa, they are doing like this, overpopulation, and so see, there's many things happen. So we'll see like we're living with that spirit of fear. Yeah, sometimes with the recently what's the situation, or the currently situation that is going on with Dudula operation, I don't know, Operation Dudula, something like that one. So sometimes it's scary for the refugees. Also, when I went to work there, I supposed to work for a few years, and he didn't pay that much for you to save. And to myself, I said to myself, I can't carry on with this situation, because once you carry on working for someone who is paying, let's say, 500 per week, and for how many years you will save, for how many years you will look also after your family back home, those are still alive. So it was very difficult. And I said to myself that I need to study. And when I need to study, at least I need to show this world, I need to teach others that we can say something about everything that is happening around us, everything that is happening in our countries. So that's why I say I need to choose theology. When I choose theology, so I will speak through my religion. I'll be focused on leadership and try at least to say something and to change something around me, because change can start from me, going from the one who's next to me, from another one, and from every one. So until I applied to UKZN, when I applied to UKZN, it wasn't easy, because I tried to save a little bit. And to me, it was like the school fees can be like in our countries, because you can't pay that much at university. Oof. When I reached to UKZN, from there, it wasn't easy. I tried for the first time, but thank you to the School of Theology. At least they give a bursary that they try to support me on tuition only, and it says tuition only. So there is no way for you to pay accommodation, for you to pay foods and to do that. What you're supposed to do, first of all, the classes are full time. So I need to leave that job and go to school every day, because at work I'm supposed to go from 7 until 6, until 4, I mean. Then after that, one of my friends also called me and said, no, you can go to school. And then after that, around 3 to 5, and also the weekend, we can go to do and car guard. Sometimes if we have that opportunity to do security, so we can do that. Then we need we're supposed to do that. And then we start going with my friends and do all those stuff. But the problem is what? You're coming from school, you're going to do the car guards. Some of us, some of the friends going to do security. So there's no time for you to just focus with your studies. It was very hard. And that affected what the performance at school. But first year, I didn't perform well, and it was very complicated because you need to think about yourself, how you're gonna eat, how you're gonna do this, and then I'm gonna do that, how you're gonna pay for the rent, how you're gonna pay for food and other stuff. But thank you, God, and it went as it was. Yeah, we can't do anything about that. And second year until I finished, but the problem is what? Once we are students, and then we are doing car guards, we are doing security, I'm not sure that the performance that will be that very well, because people are not the same. Some can be stressing about that situation, but some they can just try to push and say, no, I can make it one day. And you will carry on in that situation. So until I finish my degree, I get my degree. But once I get my degree, I didn't get my certificate. Why? Because I didn't finish the money that I'm supposed to pay to UKZN. And also the system of 15% every day. Once you go there, for you to register, you need to pay the 15%. So what you need to do, sometimes you can sell your computer, you can sell your cell phone for you to make the 15%. So it's a little bit complicated. That's the challenges that we are trying to face as the refugees and as the students to my side, and the other people that I'm trying to speak most of the time. But there's many challenges. So for me, that I found like that was the main challenges. And to finish maybe with my story to the leadership of UKZN and everyone that is in this meeting, what I will do, what I will ask, is there is no way that as a leadership, you can provide at least a scholarship for refugee students. I will ask you to consider this demand. And I like the motto of UKZN. One, we are saying, inspiring to the greatness. To me, when we say inspiring, also it can be uplifting. And then through the scholarship, we can do that. We can help refugees, because they are not be refugees for forever. We'll have families, children. What about the next generation? So if the leadership will consider this demand, at least to see how to provide a scholarship for refugee students, I think it will be very helpful. Thank you so much, and Prof, over to you.
Thank you very much, Sergeant, for sharing your story as well and the challenges you are facing. The last point that you've raised, I think it's a very valid point that needs to be directed to the right channels. I think outside the webinar, we can talk, or you can talk to Dr. Masondo, he will direct you to the right people where you can put this point across. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of the presentations, and I would like to thank the speakers for sharing their experiences. Some are painful and some are positive, as I alluded earlier, and there are mixed emotions about their experiences, like being in a very strange country, foreign country, and you don't know the language of the people around you. It poses a huge challenge because you can't communicate, let alone the indigenous languages spoken in the area. Some people that are not at the tertiary institutions or academic institutions, some of them, they don't speak English. They want to speak their own mother tongue. So I can imagine how difficult it is for a person who speak French and doesn't speak English and the local languages. So those are the challenges that causes pain to any person with a refugee status. And I think what is underlined by the experiences that were shared to us today is that people must learn to treat other peoples with respect and dignity. After all, we are the same people, we are African people, and we have heard that they have also challenges with xenophobia and Operation Dudula, which is quite unfortunate for us because if you've never been outside South Africa, you would not experience some of the stories that we've heard today. But I don't want to belabor the point. I'll just check if there are any questions from our question and answer so that we can allow our speakers to respond to questions. Some of the issues that they wanted to raise, they could not raise them because of time, but I think we still have time to respond to some of the issues that people would like to know more.
Prof, I can see some questions that have been asked.
Yeah, here from my system, it says no open, oh, okay.
They are
All
in
right.
the chat, in the chat.
In the chat, okay. Right, let me check.
Yeah.
Mr. P and Sage, how did you get to South Africa? I don't think people know how refugees travel to their adopted countries.
Well,
can both of you respond to that question?
I will be very brief, actually, because my travel to South Africa, it was explained to me, and exactly how the gentleman explained it worked. He said, go take a boat across the Maputo Bay, and then you will get on a truck. And I got on a truck, and then there was a lot of walking throughout the night, and part of it was actually going through the fence, and then there will be a car that will take you to Manguzi after that, the town. Now the script changed after we crossed the border. Instead of taking us to Manguzi, we were taken to a little village in a forest where everything that was valuable to most people was taken, and before we were then left in Manguzi. Fortunately, I managed to hit enough money for me to get to Durban. So I would not consider myself an expert in how to do that, but the person I was speaking to knew how to do that. And I met people along the way, on that way, who actually were going back and forth, helping people. Now, this is established. I have to say this. The law, according to the law, it does not matter how you get to a country. It matters what your claim to asylum is. And so I have to emphasize this for people who don't know. How you get to the country is not a consideration. The consideration is mostly, do you have a valid claim to asylum. Now, of course, there are some refugee laws that state, for example, that you can jump from one country to another, that, you know, there are various other technicalities, but that's when here in South Africa, when you go to Home Affairs, how you got here, if you are saying you are going to apply, does not come into the equation, I have to say that.
Yeah, I'm glad that people from Manguzi treated you so well, because I also come from Manguzi. So yes,
yeah.
So I'm much relieved to hear that you were successful in walking through the fence at KwaZulu. The place is called KwaZulu.
Oh, actually,
yes.
Somebody asked me, I spoke about Zulus. What was my experience of Zulus afterwards when I got here? So it's a beautiful question. I have to say that people who had the biggest influence in my life so far, actually, most of them are Zulu. It was, of course, I spoke about it a little bit. It's the image of Zulus that is sometimes misunderstood, and it's something that needs to be managed. And I keep saying this in many contexts. You can change the perception of Zulus on the African continent. Somebody should be doing that. Somebody should make it their work to do that. You can change the perception of South Africa, of Black people. I mean, are we talking about safety? Can you imagine? Twice it happened to me in African countries where they saw my travel document and I somehow was attacked because I'm Black and I have a South African document. It's not a passport, it's a travel document. And so I'm telling you that somebody should, let me tell you a country that does it well, Rwanda. They do care what the image of Rwanda is. I don't know if South Africa cares what the image of South Africa is. You can call it Dudula, xenophobia, Afrophobia, whatever you call it. It is damaging equally, and somebody should make it their job.
It is very sad. It is very sad to hear that. But let's hear from Sage. How did you get to South Africa, Sage?
Okay. Thank you so much. To my side, first of all, I didn't choose to find myself this side. First of all, we ran from DRC to Rwanda. And when we reach in Rwanda, according to ourselves, we said, no, we can't stay because between Rwanda and DRC, there's some political tension. So we're supposed to move from there until Tanzania. But from Tanzania, we didn't manage. Why? Because we're supposed to go in the camp of refugee, according to what they told us, but I didn't see any camp, to be honest. And from there, we were three. One of us, he was 10 years more than me. Yeah, so he's supposed to make a plan for us to run from Tanzania and go to another country. How we cross the border, like Bay Bridge, I think, what's it called? Yeah, I think it's Bay Bridge. So how we cross?
Were you from Zimbabwe at that time?
Yeah, yes, we coming from this side, yes. Where was they help us? They help us with the truck driver. So we didn't know where to go, because my friends, one of my friends, make a plan for us to run at least to reach a place where we can live like everyone, a normal life, where we can try to work and manage to live a better life. That's why we found ourselves this side. How we found ourselves this side.
Hey, that's a very painful experience. Let's check if there are any other questions. Somebody, Walter Tabana, says, as I mentioned earlier on, that I'm conducting research on refugees, looking at the non-communicable diseases among them. I would like to ask both Mr. P and Serge, what challenges are they facing in order to access healthcare facilities, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic?
Yeah.
This question is directed to both of you.
Yeah. Well, I have to say, as I have said before, I am really speaking from a position of privilege. And I'm deliberately mentioning that because UKZN as an institution had a role to play. Now, I don't want to make this about UKZN. I just want to say tertiary institutions, wherever they are, especially leading tertiary institutions, you can actually make the experience of the refugee body completely different. And now I don't have challenges with regard to healthcare because I use private healthcare. Now I'm in a position where I can afford it. But do you know that right now I just had my wife and I just welcomed our first baby, and she's stateless because the law has been changed. And we actually don't know how to have her added on our medical aid. We don't know how to get an ID number for her. There's no path for our baby, and we are both permanent residents. There's no path that we are right now dealing with Home Affairs and VFS and everybody trying to help us understand what do we do, and we are struggling to get her on medical aid. Now this is as I'm trying to say, this is, you know, what you thought was safety, suddenly you realize it's an illusion. It's not safe. So if something happened to my baby now, I think there will be a little bit of a challenge, just because Home Affairs has amended the law and right now literally made the path to any kind of access to papers unclear, you know, for my baby. Now, I know that there is a lot of refugees who are struggling with access to healthcare. JRS is one of the organizations that provide healthcare to those who are very ill. It's expensive, it is difficult, and sometimes the xenophobic experience at healthcare facilities, a lot of them I have also witnessed, where they get there and the nurses and the receiving staff treat them really differently and sometimes really badly just because they are refugees. You know, we went to get our baby inoculated, and as soon as we mentioned our names and that we are foreigners, the demeanor of the staff just changed in front of our eyes. We could see it. Now, of course, we are in a position where we can speak for ourselves, and if they don't do it, we are going to pay for it. But what about people who can't? Who can't afford that? You know, it's a lot. There's a lot of people. And unfortunately, this is one of those very sad realities with refugees. And by the way, we keep talking about refugees. There's a huge category, I think it's the biggest number of what are called asylum seekers. These are people who have what we call Section 22, who are still waiting for their refugee status to be determined. They suffer the same fate, and they are much more disadvantaged because they have no ID number, they can't travel, they can work and study, but their papers expire every few months. Who's going to employ you with a paper that will expire, in 2 months? And there is no outside assistance to help them. So the people who have genuine claim to refugee status are actually really suffering because of the limitations imposed by them, by the very paper that they give to them to legalize their status. It's a contradiction, but it's quite sad reality. And of course, on the other side, you need to look at the South African government. It's a sovereign state. They need to protect themselves. The Minister of Home Affairs is very clear. This is a sovereign state. We can't just open the doors to everybody who comes. But where is the balance? Where is the balance? Where do you draw the line? Because it's not just about welcoming people. There's a humanitarian aspect to refugees that needs to be considered in this way. So how do we draw the balance and make sure that South Africa gets what they get in terms of need for national security, and refugees get what they get in terms of safety and refuge, because that's what it actually means. They're looking for refuge.
Yeah, this is very, very complicated and complex issue. Let's hear from you, Said.
Okay, thank you so much, Prof. To my side, I don't have many experience about that question concerning the healthcare and other stuff, because since I've been in South Africa, I think I went to the hospital twice, and it went well. They just asked me to pay money for, I don't know, 150 or something, but it went well to my side. But when I tried to help someone to do what data collection, because the person was speaking on immigration. When I tried to help the person, because he was a South African, so I was supposed to help the person among refugees and try to tell him, no, don't go this side. This is very dangerous place, and go this and that. So there's one thing I've noticed. Most of refugees, they are talking about birth certificates. There's no birth certificates for children that are born in South Africa. So then I was asking myself, remember in my country, I think the beginning of this year or last year, one of the parliamentaries he suggests that if they can vote the law that will say for you to be one of the leaders in Congo, your mother and your father need to be a Congolese, and yourself, you need to be born in Congo for you to lead the Congo, for you to be one of the leaders. So the question was like, in Congo, let's say I have a child today, he don't have a birth certificate in Congo, and he don't have a birth certificate in South Africa. So with time, how the life of my children, is it a South African, is it a Congolese, or what? See, so that is one of the challenges that refugees are facing. Okay, thank you, Prof.
Prof, if I can add a point on healthcare.
Yes.
South Africa has access to so different. And I know this because I am close to many medical professionals who are in public institutions. It seems as if each province is dealing with it in their own way. There is no national policy. But one of the things that has happened is that, for example, people who are undocumented, they are allowed to go and have the vaccine, because South Africa in the system created a generic number that becomes an identifier in the place of an ID number. So basically, there are all the options. You are a citizen, you are a permanent resident, you're a refugee, you're an asylum seeker, and if you are undocumented, you can still get this number generated by the vaccine center, and it will be your number for all your subsequent vaccinations. So this is one of those examples where South Africa gets things right. Yeah, but how many people actually know that and are free to go and say, I'm coming here to be vaccinated and I'm undocumented? Because many people fear that they are going to be persecuted when they get there. But the facility is there. You don't have to have an ID number to be vaccinated. So it's one thing to have a great thing, but you have to communicate it very clearly so that people know that. And it's about managing information and image, because this would be something that the health department and Home Affairs can be proud of. How many people know that South Africa actually opens doors like that?
Yes, South Africa has policies in place, but I think the challenge is mainly on how to implement those policies and also the attitude of the officials in the implementation of the policies is a problem. Like we are talking about the issue of image, that is the main problem. And I agree with you. We are running out of time, and let me take the last. Owela has got a question. How's your relationship with NGOs that is assisting you guys to access asylum and refugee status at Home Affairs? Are they doing their best to get you guys proper documentation? I think this is going to be the last question. Can you respond to this question briefly on the matter of NGOs? Like Dennis Haley Center, you've mentioned that they do assist in these cases.
Yeah.
Briefly.
Let me say that organization, in terms of access to documentation, this is still really a Home Affairs thing, and it's a difficult one. Even lawyers for human rights, they try. And myself, I've had varying degrees of success dealing with NGOs in terms of access to documentation, because this is really a Home Affairs thing. And within Home Affairs, you also find different people doing different things. This is actually an opportunity for me to mention another great UKZN alum, Veronica King. She's a senior, she's an official at Home Affairs, and once she did extremely amazing things with refugees by just doing her job as a manager at Home Affairs. And I witnessed her do great things where other officials were actually being obstructive. And she said, hang on a second, you can't do that. You know, some of you might know Veronica King. And so
the main issue is about the personnel at the Home Affairs offices.
Absolutely.
And yes, unfortunately, we are running out of time. As such, do you want to add your final remark?
Not really, Prof. But I think everything is clear. Concerning what the last question, I don't have any information on that.
Okay. All right. No, thank you very much to both of you for being open about your own personal experiences. And I think I'm grateful that we had this opportunity, although the institution of UKZN can do little except for the challenges that were raised by SEARCH, which were directed to the university. But I'm glad that from your experience, P, you feel that you were privileged to be associated with the University of KwaZulu-Natal. And
Prof, I will ask for a minute.
Yes, go for it.
It is to say this. When the University of Natal had a policy to include refugees to apply for financial aid, this has been discontinued now, but I don't know the reasons. I don't have the information. I want to elevate it just beyond, like I said before, beyond the University of KwaZulu-Natal. This becomes an experience of a country by the refugee body. They experience South Africa through the experience they have with the University of Natal. Right now, I have a challenge to settle my student loan. I have been dealing with the finance department, and it's difficult to get through. Right. So what am I saying? I'm saying the way you act as an institution actually bears on the life of refugees across the country, and therefore on the image of this continent. Let us find a way, instead of really counting cents and being more petty on things that can't be done, let's look at things that can be done. Trevor Wills did and found a way. I'm sure somebody today can find a way.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for creating this awareness. I think we still have a long way to go in addressing some of these issues. And I think Trevor Wills will be excited to hear from you because he's still around. If you can drop him an email, I think he'll be delighted to hear from you. And we know that we cannot be perfect and be 100% on resolving some of these issues because of the capacity. One is the reason why we can't guarantee that we have solutions. But thank you very much for sharing your highs and lows. And I'm also grateful that you survived. And I wish that you continue to survive. And under these circumstances, some of them will be resolved along the way. But thank you very much for the opportunity to share them with us. And I want to thank the organizers of this webinar, Ms. Pamela Adams, who has coordinated this so well. And we want to thank Ms. Norma Zondo for the opening and the welcome. We thank all of you colleagues and friends who attended this webinar. I hope you have learned a lot from these impactful discussions that we had today. And I myself, some of the issues, I was hearing them for the first time, which also raised awareness of the fact that we still have a challenge to do much better and practice what we call Ubuntu, which is an African philosophy, that we are all African people. So we must treat our guests and our people from other countries in the continent as our own people. On that note, thank you for attending, and I wish you well in all your endeavors. Thank you. The webinar is now adjourned. Thank you. Bye-bye now.
Thank you, Prof. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Prof. Thank you for facilitating.
Thank you, P Pacific. And let me say hi.
Yes,
Thank you, guys. You were great.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Please keep in touch.
No, we will keep in touch.
Yeah, more especially with the Trevor Wills, who also want to get that feedback from you.
Let's make her the speaker at the book launch. How about that?
Yes.
Yes.
That would be awesome. Yeah,
Definitely, yes, that would be great.
We'll get your details from Pam, and then we'll communicate.
No, I did. He did contact Jane, and he contacted Trevor.
So we are
we'll have to invite them to the book.
Yeah, we will.
Yeah,
that will be very special for them. And Mario Dendal, I want to insist.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, she's also around. I've seen her around.
Yeah, she's still around. Yes.
Yes.
No, that would be awesome.
I hope I will also be invited, Pam.
Of course.
Oh yes, Prof. I can't forget
you'll definitely be invited as well.
Okay.
And Seje, thank you so much as well. Thank you for giving us your account of all the, the stories, and what you've been going through. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
All right,
we
everybody.
Enjoyed the talk.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye now.